Shalom, my name is Yehoshua Ya'acov ben Abraham. I'm making this video from Jerusalem. The name of it is Obama's biggest mistake, and that is that he sees himself as the agent of change. He is far from the reality of the fact that God has ended man and mankind's exile. And this means there can be no Moshiach or redemption without the collapse of the local reality. Exile was the local reality. Okay, it was a model of man's mind, given to receive. I give, I get is what it meant. It's collapsed. Man's fear and greed drove him, and this is in it. Okay. Now, Obama sees himself as the agent of change. Well, the agent of change doesn't come from Obama or any other political leader. And history and events are the agent of change that's driving a global transformation from what to what? From a behavioral mammal to a cognitive being. And the end of man's exile compels us to not only recognize it, but to accept it. And when we accept it, it obligates us as individuals to deconstruct the particular ground zero as applies to us, our families. Okay, so Michael Jackson, God imposed the local reality. The collapse of the local reality at the end, that's it. You know, your narcissism and nihilism converge, and so that the psychotic and sociopathic manifestations of personality, of self-abuse, etc., you're out of here. Time's up. Okay, so Barack Obama sees it's man's delusion. You're not the agent of change. No man is. God is the agent of change, and He brings events, and also He provides us spiritual leaders. Okay, so the end of man and mankind's exile is the result of the collapse of local reality. And what are we to do? We're to accept and inhabit in mind Humanomics. Why? Because if communism collapsed, and it did, and capitalism collapsed, it's not a coincidence. The result is a convergence to the center of these two models of history, and that convergence model is Humanomics. Okay. And it's culture specific as well in its convergence, because secular humanism, traditional spiritualism, in every culture has to as well converge in the models of human behavior and cognition. Okay, having said that, what else is important? We have to recognize it, and we have to accept it, and because only when we accept it can we inhabit the quantum reality that is Humanomics. Okay, so this is where we are, and this is the agent of change, and it's new science and technology. There is a new economic paradigm, the cognitive behavioral science paradigm. Humanomics' central organizing principle is the new cognitive behavioral science first principle, which is receiving to give. In Hebrew, kabel b'shvilatet, receiving the authentic you to give the authentic you. Also in economics, it's the integration of other places, the division of labor, okay, the industrial revolution. Okay, so this is the science and technology manifest as global technological infrastructure. And my observation, and I say this purely empirically and logically as the derivatives that drive my statement, I see President Obama as already becoming the incumbent. And because the delusion of seeing himself as the agent of change has blinded him to see what in reality, in fact, on the ground are the agents of change, and even more specifically and probably more problematic is the fact that the TARP and ARRP, American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, we're just sitting around waiting to see those green sprouts. Well, as Warren Buffett said, I don't see any of those green sprouts. Well, he isn't gonna. And if you do, they're pretty emaciated and pretty pathetic. Look, folks, let's say it for what it is. The collapse of the local reality, the collapse of the world economy was manifest not as a financial crisis, which is really one of the symptoms, but the crisis of culture. driven by man's fear and greed. The collapse of the World Order ended man's exile. This is the driving agent of transformation of mankind. This is what has to be recognized, and after it's recognized, it has to be accepted. And then when we postulate the solution, it's comprehensive. It recognizes that the solution has to be for all of man and mankind. That's Humanomics' New East-West convergence model in general, and in particular, it's central organized, much receive to give, and the integration of the new economic paradigm. Okay, so this is where we're going, and this is what we must inhabit. And inhabit means it has to be accepted. You know, if the 75,000 views of my videos become 750 or 70 million or 700 million or 7 billion, that's wonderful. You know, I'll have the same, you know, that in 30 cents will get you a pack of bubble gum. You know, recognition is nothing. It's acceptance that drives. And that acceptance has to come first from Eretz Israel, in particular, Klal Israel in general. And this will drive the acceptance of all mankind. And that acceptance is the engine, the booster rocket for the global recognition that will produce billions of web links and hits and presences to convey this. That's where we're going, folks. That's my message. And I thank you for listening. I'm Yehoshua Ya'acov ben Abraham. I'm the author of the trilogy Humanomics and its two paradigms. And I thank you and wish you from Jerusalem blessings and kabel b'shvilatet. Thank you for listening.